Tonight I'm going to be speaking to you about repossessions because I believe that and at the moment all repossessions are on hold. So the courts are going to be inundated because whether it's tenants or whether it's mortgagees, we are going to, starting on the 30th of June, is the first time anyone can put an application in for a repossession again. And that may be extended by the government, we don't know that yet. So we're not quite sure what's going to happen. But at the moment, all repossessions are on hold. Once that comes off of hold, I believe there are going to be people in certain circumstances that are going to need our help. So anyone who's advertising cash paid for property are going to do really well. I used to advertise with leaflets and newspaper adverts. That we've tried more recently and it doesn't work anywhere near as well as advertising via pay-per-click and advertising via Facebook marketing. So, you would expect from speaking to people that are doing this type of marketing to spend somewhere around £2,000 for each below market value acquisition you do from cash paid from property adverts. And one of the biggest, most common of the people that call are people who have been repossessed. Now, if a repossession has actually happened and it goes to the estate agents to sell, I never recommend my clients to pursue a repossessed property unless you've got a very, very good relationship with the agent and it's only on with one agent. Most repossessions tend to be on with two agents now, and they do cold call to see what the agents are doing with them. So whereas in the old days they used to be able to block off any people coming in to offer more when you had a relationship there, now that's not the case unless on very few rare circumstances, because they don't want to lose their connection with the built societies that give them the repossessions. If you are dealing with a repossession from Connells, you will be fairly safe because Connells normally only deal with as a single agency, and if you've ever put an offer on and tried to gazump anyone who's already bought from Connells, let me tell you, if you are not getting your mortgage with Connells, you are not getting that repossession, because they make more money on the mortgage than they do on the repossession. So, knowing people who used to work there, in fact I've employed the people who used to work there, they will 100% of the time will only sell a repossession to somebody who's taking the mortgage with them. But 9 times out of 10, you end up getting gazumped. And what is the point of starting the process when you've put in a low enough offer and it gets accepted? If it does, you will get gazumped, okay? Because when they put in the notice on the internet to say they've had an offer of a certain amount, you will have people offer more. So you will have spent out money, good money, on maybe solicitors' papers, maybe on a survey, only to be gazumped a few days later. Now, if you come into contact with somebody who is being repossessed, what I would recommend that you do is to read their paperwork to see what stage it's at. Okay, there is a form you can fill in called an N244. So if there is a court date, make sure you attend with the person who's being repossessed. Or if it's got a repossession date, then you can fill in a form called an N244. That's an application to set aside the judgment for the execution of the warrant of eviction. That's a bit of a mouthful, I know, so I'm not going to say it again. And using the word execution in there doesn't sound very nice. And obviously, being repossessed is not a nice thing. So I've been to court many times with people who are being repossessed. Now, sometimes, I've had a call the night before and they're being repossessed at 11 o'clock the next day. The court's open at 11 normally. It means we need to be at court at 11 because the eviction's probably at 12 or 1. Okay, so you fill in the N244. Now, obviously, if someone's being repossessed the next day, it's not a nice situation for them to be in, or the next week or 2 weeks' time. So I always attended court with them if they wanted me to. So whether I was going to buy their house or not, I would always offer to go to court with them. And here's the thing, when you're in court, there will be a representative from the Building Society at court. Now, they aren't a solicitor, they are just someone who understands repossessions, who the bank pays. When I was doing it, I used to get paid £40-50 per attendance, and they used to give you 1 or 2 in a day. So you get someone and they'll come and talk to you, and they're not always that nice. They're more gunning for repossession. So they come and they speak and they ask, what's your proposal? What are you going to do? And then they go in front of the judge and they quite often say, well, Mr. Smith's proposal is this and I'm not happy with it, or whatever. Now, the judge will normally, if the person's never been in court before with that repossession, with that property, pretty much ask the vendor or the owner for a proposal to make repayments, paying off some of the loan. Now, the lender's representative will try and get that paid off as quickly as possible, but the actual judge is at liberty to, pace the monthly payments. So never offer too much. Don't offer more than the vendor can afford in order to try and pay it quickly, because you've got the whole life of the mortgage to pay it off if it's what it takes. Obviously, it works slightly different if it's on a repayment method. But you need to overpay by a little bit every month, not by 100 or 150 or 200 quid like they normally start off asking, especially if the seller can't, or the person you're with can't afford it. So that's a negotiation. Now, what I found is it was far better just to go in court, let them play up and tell you what they're going to do, but always ask, and here's the thing, for the redemption figure. So when you're in court, the judge will ask the lender's representative what the outstanding arrears is, how much the mortgage is, how many months they're in arrears, and they'll give them their numbers. And then I, with the owner, would then say to the judge, could we please get the redemption figure so that I, who was going to buy this property, can start the process. Now, quite often, I will get the solicitors acting for the person who's being repossessed to write a letter to say they've been appointed and they are acting in the sale, and they're waiting to work out the sale price from the redemption figure. Now, I've been in court where the judge has then said to the representative, where's the redemption figure? And they never know it. And I was in court 1 week with this person, and the judge was getting really ratty with them and agreed to adjourn for 15 minutes while they found it out. Of course, they're not going to be able to get a redemption figure very quickly. So we're back in court, and the judge was literally shouting at this person for not having that figure and wasting court time. Funny enough, it was I can't remember if it was the next day or the week later. I was back in court with another vendor with exactly the same representative, and instead of going in court and confronting the judge, he just turned around and asked us before we went in how long we'd like to pay. And when we walked in, because he didn't have the redemption figure, he just said to the judge that they've made this proposition, which is okay. Now, I was in court many times, and I met somebody who I interviewed in court a few times, representing the banks, someone who was a solicitor, and she used to represent the bank sometimes and she actually approached me and asked if I'd start working for them. Now, what it is most of the lenders use one solicitors in London, big London firm, to deal with their repossessions. Then into the individual towns, that firm has got an individual solicitor in each town that they use. So they used Toyne's firm. And Toyne approached me and she said, look, I think you do good here. I think you are fair with the people. I've spoken to some of the people that you bought properties from, and you're always very fair with them. So, sorry, I've just got to change something over here. You're always very fair with them. Would you be prepared to represent the bank in court? And so I said, yeah, okay, fine. Now, she was happy, they were happy for me to pass on to the vendor. So when I went to court and sat with the vendor to find out what was going on, I just used to give them a telephone number of a solicitor who could help. I used to say to them, call them, and the solicitor would turn around and say, yeah, okay, we specialise in evictions. This is the process, and there is somebody that you can speak to that will talk you through the process if you wish. So they would give them my business partner's telephone number. Okay, so then what would happen is my business partner would ring up, and regardless, we would do what we thought was the best for the vendor. We would normally tell them what to say to the judge, and sometimes we were dead open with them, and that it was me that was going to buy the property, and we did that for a few years, I was in court many times now. On one particular occasion, and you have to do this with 100% integrity. So I was representing, or was with somebody in court. Now, his dad had phoned me originally. His dad and his mum lived in the house with him. It used to be their house, they'd sold it to him. His parents were in their late 60s, early 70s, and he was there because he'd called me, so it wasn't a court case, he'd called me to say that their mortgage was about to go from £800 a month to £1,200 a month because the discounted period was coming up. And because his girlfriend had a CCJ on a £30 telephone bill that was a principal thing, she didn't pay it, they could only get subprime lending, and that subprime lending the lending would continue at £1,200 a month. So I kind of intervened, and I'd agreed a price on the property I was going to buy because I was renting it back to them for $750 a month. They were happy that they could afford it because their budget was $800. Now, when I found out about his girlfriend, I suggested that he applied on his own for this mortgage. So that's what he did. He applied on his own for the mortgage. And he used my mortgage broker, who I've now been using for about 30 years. I now use his son, a G. And he managed to get him a mortgage, not for $800, but got it down to $700. So the dad called me a few weeks later. I never bought the property, never bought it. I remember he used to run a limo hire company. And they just didn't want to have to struggle at £1,200 a month when it was $800 they were managing. And it turned out that he was the chairman of the Working Men's Club, and he'd actually hung my leaflet in the Working Men's Club. He hung it on to their notice board and put a little note to say, highly recommended, if you've got any problems with your mortgage, I recommend you call them and they will help you. And I used to get quite a lot of calls from there. And over the 2-year period after that, I ended up probably buying about 10 properties from people who saw that leaflet. So, karma comes back many times. That was the process. I've also managed to get properties back from people who had already been repossessed. One by paying the loan off in full, and another one by challenging it because I challenged it under the grounds of oppressive repossession. When I went in front of the judge turned around and said, "Come on, Mr. Armstrong, what repossession isn't oppressive?" And I said, "Well, Your Honour, the gentleman's partner had been into the bank with the £7,000 arrears to pay it in the morning, and they said because of money laundering they refused to accept it, and because of that he didn't have the money with him in London where they were working, so he couldn't get there, and they were repossessed." So the judge actually forced the mortgage company to hand the keys back to them, and then when the mortgage company sent them a bill for cutting off the services, we managed to go back to court and get the judge to bill them for reconnecting it. So, I've had many experiences in court, and the process is pretty much the same. Now, I'm more than happy for anybody, whether on my mentoring program or not, if they have somebody that they know who's being repossessed. It's not a nice feeling, it's not a nice situation to be in. I'm more than happy if you drop me a text or ask one of my staff for a phone call to talk you through the process and to show you how you can at least delay the repossession, okay? Especially if you want to delay it for long enough for you to buy the property. I'm going to start asking questions anytime now. If anyone's got any questions, please fire away, because I don't really have a lot more to say about it, because that is the process. You fill in an N244 and you go to court and ask the judge for time to pay or ask for a redemption figure. We used to have a competition between myself and my business partner who could get the longest, in between the court date and the longest time to allow the sale to go through. Obviously, when I was buying lots of properties, it only took 3 or 4 weeks to get a repossession through, so we used to ask for 8 weeks, and then 12, then 14, and it got a little bit more. We used to get a lot more time when we hit the bad, when there was the last property crash. Now, I'm sure that there are going to be people being repossessed after the current situation. Not everyone's been able to get themselves a loan. Not everybody's been able to, survive and have kept their jobs. I believe the people that want to work will work. Many of them will have been able to get a 3-month payment holiday from their building societies, and some won't. So don't forget, it's not until the 30th of June that it actually anyone's going to be able to start processing repossessions, and that's inclusive of the building society. Okay, right, so if you have a question that you want to ask me direct, please pop your hand up and I'll come and ask you, because it'll be good, I'm pretty sure, to have some different voices on here. And Jeff has got his hand up, so let's go to Jeff and unmute Jeff. So there we go. Hi Jeff, good evening to you. Hi Jeff, you got your hand up. Do you have a question for me? Okay, some people just put their hands up because they're not quite sure. Right, I've got some questions. Pamela says, I'd like to know how and where to buy repossession properties. Okay, well look, there is no holy grail. I did used to have access to the whole court system at one point, okay, but that's been shut down a long time ago. We've tried going into court, looking at the repossession lists, trying to identify the addresses from the list of repossessions. So if it says Nationwide versus Smith, it's unlikely you can track them down. But if it's Nationwide versus so-and-so and so-and-so, and they're a little bit unusual, it wasn't too hard to track down their address. Now, I call that ambulance tracing, and we were never very successful at that. Nick, my business partner, he used to actually go and attend the court and was there quite regularly and tried to intercept people who were being repossessed and ask if they want any help. Until one day the bailiffs realised who he was and chased him out. Then we started employing people to hand out leaflets to people coming out of the court. When we did that, we found that the people that were handing the leaflets out didn't like to stay in the job for very long, because quite often somebody who's just been told they were being repossessed got quite angry with them. So then we tried putting them on the car windscreens around the court, and then we were phoned because the telephone number was on there and told that if we continued to do that, we would be fined for littering, because people used to throw them on the floor. So in the end, we decided just to stick to dropping leaflets and doing marketing for people who were being repossessed or wanted to sell quick, or being divorced, getting divorced, etc., etc. So ambulance tracing didn't work that well. Okay, so John says, did you ever employ the strategy of advertising to buy houses that were coming up for repossession? Only in local papers, on newspaper, and on leaflets. One day, my leaflet deliverer actually handed, totally by coincidence, somebody who was being escorted out of the house by the bailiffs, one of our leaflets, and they thought it was part of the process. But it is just a numbers game. We kept leafleting. I would probably do 10,000 to 20,000 leaflets. I think pretty much most weeks, and we would get, I'd get a deal a month from the leaflets. So there we go. Right, John says, did you ever employ the strategy of advertising? Yep, that's the one we just answered. Lorna says, how do you get to know about these before it's too late? Well, only if they contact you, Lorna. We've tried other things. We've tried bandit boards, hanging things on lampposts. You see lots of different things on lampposts by traffic lights, all that type of stuff. We've tried that. One of the most successful things was jet washing, because it's not illegal to jet wash pavements, with our telephone number and message into the paving stones in around bus stops where people were stopping and waiting for buses in the mornings. And again, on certain walls, it's not like graffiti. You hang your stencil up, you jet wash the words through, and you've got the repossession message on the wall. So I've tried everything. I don't think there's anything that we haven't tried. But there isn't this holy grail list hanging about where the banks publish all the properties that are being repossessed. Angela says, is repossession of below market value strategies sustainable? Angela, there is considerably less repossessions now. My marketing that I do, that's brought me in nearly 6 million of profit potential in deals that I'm currently doing, from a £15 a week advert on pay-per-click, is all about people that have got a property in London that have got potential for extensions, potential for refurbishments, loft extensions, basements, and I say that I'll pay for it and Jay, you can give them an uplift. So is it sustainable? It's one of the reasons that a campaign that you may be contacted. Mortgage companies, the banks have been much more stringent on giving loans and loan to values, and no more what they call live mortgages, self-cert mortgages aren't allowed anymore. So percentage-wise, there's far fewer properties being repossessed now to 10, 15 years ago. So is it sustainable? I don't think your marketing will be majority of people that respond are responding because of that, but they'll respond from one of the reasons. And our marketing also says that we would pay over market price in certain circumstances for people, which is something, it's a strategy that I teach on our Zoom course that I run every month, how you can, now put it this way, I've bought a property, I'm buying it for 300 grand, I've sold it for 280, the value of the property is 235, so I've sold it for more than what it's worth. I'm paying a lot more than it's worth, and I will make, yes, I will make about £250,000 profit out of it. So that's something I share on my 3-day Zoom course, how to do that. But as a leaflet, you're going to get people responding that are being divorced, people who just want to sell quick for other reasons, and sometimes people who are being repossessed. Nar says, good evening, how do we get to text you? I'm also looking for investors to fund 100% JV projects for repossession property deals. I have. Kind regards. Okay, well, obviously, if that repossessions from a bridging company and they're not residential, they are buy-to-lets, then there are people that lend. The bridging companies will have certain friends that they sell them to, because all they're interested in is recouping their loss, and they're not legally obliged to get the best price. So they'll just sell them cheap to their friends, but that's only on bridges and buy-to-let mortgages. When it comes to residential mortgages, their estate agents, that goes through that process, and they're duty bound to get the best price they possibly can for the property. So I'm not sure where your list is from, because you're saying you're looking for JV projects for repossession property deals. You'll have to share it with me, and if I think you've got a credible source, then I'm quite sure we can find JV partners. Initially, if you're looking for my phone number, the best thing to do is talk to one of my staff, and they'll set up an appointment for a call. Peter says, what is the redemption figure compared to, say, an outstanding mortgage of 100 grand with 5k arrears? Well, the mortgage will be 100 grand plus the arrears plus the costs, depending. Sometimes there's a 2% charge if you're not in your out of your discounted period. Sometimes it's a few hundred quid. Normally they've got charged some sort of fees for dispersing a mortgage. So I would say normally if it's 105 grand a mortgage, it might be 105 and a half or 106. It really depends on the terms and conditions of the mortgage that was issued in the first place. Jeff says, hi Glenn. Hi Jeff, I was trying to, you had your hand up, so I did try and answer a question. Let me go to Peter, he's got his hand up. He has asked a question. I can't, about the redemption figure. Let me just check with him that I answered it properly. Hi Peter, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, Glenn, you just read out the question. I stuck my hand up and then I thought I'd type it in.
Okay. Alright, check. Did that answer
it for me? Thanks
okay,
very much.
and is there any other detail that you need from what we said?
No, that's fine. I wasn't sure what the redemption, what made up the redemption figure. That's no problem. You've answered that, so thank you.
Alright, cheers then. Okay, and at the moment there's no other hands up. Everyone's shy on here this evening. Right, let's go to Jürgen. Jürgen says, can I have a conversation with you in the next few days? Adverse possession, please. Okay, well, adverse possession is a whole different thing, and it's quite a long process. But I do know how it works, so yeah, I'm quite happy to chat to you about adverse possession. Not particularly fond on the strategy because it just takes too long, but yeah, happy to have a chat if you drop a message to one of the staff. Pamela says, thank you for answering my question. That's no problem, you're more than welcome. Malcolm said, how much did you buy properties for BNB? Normally, I would offer around about 80% of the market price. I would start off on the phone. I have a process that I teach, a nibbling technique, a whole process that I went through that allowed me to buy my 52 properties in 48 weeks, of which probably about 75% of them were through marketing and some were through estate agents. Estate agents, I used to get a lot more deals when the market was quiet. When the market was hot, I used to get a lot more deals from my marketing. How much did I get below market value? One of the cheapest ones I bought was worth 180 and I bought it for 100. That was my mistake because, in fact, I bought it for 80 because I thought when they gave me the address it was a different type of property, and I told them what I'd pay for it over the phone and they were happy and accepted it. And when I got there I realised it was actually in a road. It was a mixture of private built properties and council houses, and I thought it was a council house and it wasn't. It was one of the private builds. So I've bought about 5 or 6 properties with $100,000 discount below market price in over the I think it's 196 properties I bought below market value between 2004 and 2008, when the Building Society stopped lending to us in 2009 when they had a recession and we had too many mortgages. Gareth, good evening Gareth. I offered on a property just before lockdown and the estate agent said they would not put the offer forward as they said it was too low. Are they allowed to do this? With the repossession, they are putting it to the lender, not to the person. Normally, if you're dealing with a person, they're supposed to put every offer through. What it probably means is that they've already got one of their friends on it. Okay. So what I would do is put that offer in via your solicitors or via letter and CC the house and the occupier, or if it has already been repossessed, sometimes there's a forwarding address. Maybe try and track down the owners, previous owners, but certainly put on there that you've CC'd your solicitors and you've CC'd your if you can find out who the Building Society is by doing a land registry to see who the charge registered against, saying that you've sent that letter of the offer letter to them as well as them, and then they won't be able to make sure just their friend buys it. Helen says, when is the next 3-day course? Helen, if you drop me an email to glenn@glennarmstrong.com, I will let you know. Gareth was on the 3-day course. Let me be a bit cheeky and see if I can find him. Gareth, could you pop your hand up, please? So I could find you on here. Should be at the top somewhere, Gareth. There we go. Hi, Gareth. I'm just unmuting you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, got you loud and clear. I just wonder if I could be cheeky and just ask you to give a 1-minute overview on how you found our 3-day Zoom thing we done over the weekend.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. Yeah, I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and it definitely got my head spinning with a few strategies that you came out with, because I've actually done a few creative strategies myself, and the stuff you took us through was very, very good. So I highly recommend it. Okay. I'm not getting paid for this.
Okay, thanks Gareth. Sorry to put you on the spot, but yeah, it's a brilliant value for 97 quid plus VAT, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Gareth. Cheers. Okay, so that was Helen. Catherine says, have you found motivated sellers have responded to landlord letters? Sorry, Catherine, I don't know what you mean by that. If you could expand, and I'll come back to you. Andrew says, what's the process for people to clear a CCJ? Basically, the best thing to do, Andrew, is for you to get your Experian and Equifax every month to see what's on there, and then if adverse pops up, you can see it. Then you need to contact the firm. Normally it will show as satisfied rather than cleared, unless you pay the CCJ within the first, I think it's 4 weeks. If you pay it within 4 weeks, it's going to be gone forever. If you pay it after that, it will be satisfied. Now, you can, if you do a deal with the person who you owed the money to in the first place, get them to agree to remove it once you've paid it, but that's a whole different process. But standard process will be to pay the debt. It will then show on your credit record as a satisfied CCJ. Still gives you a bit of adverse credit to a certain degree, but over a period of time, which I think is 3 years, it will disappear off your credit history. Noel says, I have a mortgage, 100 grand with 710, property worth 320. Any other lenders you would suggest to remortgage? No, I would say that's a mortgage broker question. In the current market, there's different ones doing deals. I don't know if there's any special offers on at the moment. I think there will be. If you hold fire for a few more weeks, I think you're going to start getting some special offers as they start trying to bid for everybody's business. Helen says, how can you be sure of the market value in this climate? Well, Helen, we don't know. You know, if you buy with enough yield in it and it values okay now, it will never matter, because in 25 years when the mortgage runs out, it will be worth more, you know, or certainly the same, and you will have benefited from the cash flow. I would make sure that you buy stuff that have got good cash flow, and if the mortgage rates go up, you can still cover it. Traditionally, properties keep on doubling in prices. That's still the case in most of the south of England, north of England. Some places are static, although in the last 12 months, we've started to see some of the areas that have been static for a few years. You know, I think last year Nottingham started moving. Leeds city centre was quite amusing or different, because that bounced out on London's tails after the last recession quicker than anywhere but the city centre, but not the surrounding areas, so that's interesting. David said, did you find someone to help you with HubSpot? Because I'm looking for someone to help with HubSpot. I didn't, David, yet, and I haven't seen your email for some reason. So maybe it's jumped into my junk file. So if you could send another email, David, that would be brilliant. Thank you very much. Alex said, are you free this week for a short chat? A member of your mentoring program, and already had a one-to-one meeting with me, with your wife. Need more clarification on the next steps. Yeah, just drop me a text, Alex, and when I'm sitting at my desk, I'll grab my diary and we'll set a time for you. Thank you, awesome, thank you. Lorna says, what are your thoughts on block viewings or making the highest secret offer strategy in a way of controlling developers? Lorna, it just means that you don't have a relationship with the agents. Okay, I detest block viewings. I don't like them, and I won't do them. When you have a relationship with an agent, you will buy it before they do any of that. So block viewings is something you do before you've got a relationship with the agent. Andrew's saying something about CCJ if zero debt. Andrew, can you give me one sentence with the whole question in? Because I'm getting lots of questions coming in every few seconds. What guidelines for making offers in these instances? Quite a bit around this area. If you're talking about block bookings, Lorna, look, when we had to do sealed bids, if that's what you mean, sealed bids, my relationship with the agent was to send an offer with a blank bit that they filled in. And they used to phone me up and tell me how much it needed to be, and if I wanted to buy it, they'd fill it in, and if I didn't, and it was too much, I didn't. That's the relationship I had with the agents, and unless you've got that type of agent, you're not in this business. You really need to have relationships with the agent built up so that they will tell you everything you need to know. Just imagine your brother, your cousin, your son, your siblings, whatever, are working for an estate agent. What would they tell you? Well, you need that information. Victor said, there is an area in London, I want to leaflet. It's a small, expensive area. How should I leaflet it? Don't bother, Victor. The leaflet cash paid for property is not going to work in London. One of my clients, even like 12 years ago, spent £20,000 marketing London, kept saying, don't worry, I'll get one deal, we'll pay for it. As soon as he started marketing in Northampton, he started getting a deal pretty much every 2 weeks. So now, maybe, just maybe, if you have a leaflet that says that you do property developing and you'll develop their property, if they're thinking of selling it, you'll add value, you'll pay for that. And then you'll share the uplift with them, then maybe, just maybe, that will work. So you could give that a go. Palmetto says, does a satisfied C2DJ affect mortgageability a lot? That's a question, Palmetto, for the mortgage broker. You can ask him on Friday, because he'll be back again on Friday. Mick says, I was also on a Friday course and it was full of useful information, all good stuff, proper messes with your head. Okay, thanks Mick. Thank you for the feedback. She says, is it still worth doing leaflets, newspaper ads to target the older crowd who aren't tax savvy and you can't target via pay-per-click, or is that dead now? She says, I believe that pre-newspapers are pretty dead. Very, very, I know somebody whose business is 80% that what it used to be through newspaper advertising. It's actually dropped 80%. The eyes are on the phones and the iPads. The time is spent on iPhones and iPads, not reading local papers. So the older crowd are actually on Facebook. So and you can target certain age groups is on Facebook. So with the right person doing the marketing for you, I still think that Facebook marketing is cost effective. From the people I know that are doing it, you get more leads from Facebook for your money, but you convert more leads from pay per click. So overall, the spend is very similar. The price per acquisition is very similar. James said, would you recommend making contacts with charge holders when they're people defaulting loans to get deals direct off these type of people? James, they're probably not allowed to do it like that. If it's unless it's commercial property or a buy-to-let. If it's a residential mortgage, they have to follow the process. There's a legal process that they have to follow, and they can't really bypass it. Jeff said, if I had a bridging loan and paid it off and didn't owe any further payments, a lender put a charge on the deed and I now need to remove it, do I still need to fill a DS1 or MRO4? I'm pretty sure your solicitor will deal with it and contact them, or you can email them and ask them to process it, Jeff. To be perfectly honest, I don't remember what an MRO4 is, but just ring the building society, the bridging company, and tell them what the issue is, or get your solicitor to contact them, and I'm sure they'll deal with it. Tam said, would it be wise to invest right now or hold on and wait and see how the house prices will be in 6 months? Tam, in 6 months' time, the best deals will have disappeared. So if you've waited for 6 months to see what happens, basically if you've got a deal and it goes the wrong way, you're still going to have a property that's okay. And if it goes the right way, you'll have a property that's been a really good buy. So heads you win, tails you don't lose. Buy now. You're not going to lose out as long as you're getting a discount. And the whole process, if we do drop a bit, doesn't go below your discount, you're still going to do okay, and you'd have got a larger loan to value. Don't forget, the banks wouldn't be lending on properties at the loan to values they are if they thought the property market was going to drop dramatically. So James says, from mortgages in questions, would you recommend making contacts with charge holders for they have more? Yeah, I answered that question. George says, have you had any experiences in purchasing properties sites direct from insolvency practitioners and administrators? Appreciate this can be challenging. There are clear protocols and day-to-day tips you could share. Yes, George, it happens. I bought a whole plot to build 19 5-beds from insolvency practitioners. You could mail shot them, you could drop them letters to say you'd be interested in buying anything, and that may work. It's not practice. I don't like ambulance chasing. Certainly if you've got a relationship with insolvency practitioners, that might be a good thing. But other than that, maybe just try it and see what happens. Drop them some letters, create yourself a letter and start sending it out to all of them. Kunle says, my score is 72% out of 100 as far as I'm concerned. Is that a good score? I don't know, Kunle. It depends on what lender. Ask the broker if that's enough for a mortgage. I'm pretty sure they'll match it to the right mortgage company. Prakash said, how do you get 25-year personal mortgages if you're in a senior age bracket? Prakash, some people will do it longer, it's not as difficult to put them in the company if it's for a private mortgage. There are some building societies that will lend mortgages up to when you're 90. I'm not sure if they're still doing them at the moment, but check with your broker. If the broker's any good, they'll know which building societies they are. Right, we are over our 45 minutes. I am going to answer 2 more questions and then wrap up. Okay, MRO4 is a statement of satisfaction in full. Thank you. I learn something new every time. And Jeff's going to contact the office moving forward. You're welcome. That's what I'm here for, Jeff. Take care. Dave said, okay, recent email. I hope that's correct. All the best. Yes, that's the right email address. Thank you. Noel, can I recommend a mortgage broker? Certainly, we use a G for all my clients. If you drop me an email to glenn@glenarmstrong.com, I'll reply and CC him in. And he does every Friday on our webinars. He'll give you an update this Friday, so if you want to hang on till Friday, you can listen to him chatting to me. Okay, that's about a wrap for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's webinar. I'm waiting on 3 or 4 people to come back to confirm dates, so I'm pretty sure there'll be an email going out tomorrow to advise you what tomorrow's webinar is going to be and who's going to be on it. Other than that, take care, have a great evening, and be careful out there.